So, in this episode, we're going to talk about what's the psychology behind how people move throughout cities. Most of the time, we think this is pretty obvious, but we have our own experiences. We have our experiences in family. We have our experiences going to work. But actually, the psychology behind how we move is very interesting, and it's actually not probably as obvious as we might all think. So, why do people choose not the fastest route, but really they choose the more convenient route? So, this is really where we want to talk about people optimizing for certainty, not just speed. That there's a perceived time versus actual time. And then habitual routes actually seem faster. So, that's that feeling when we go through our daily journey. It feels shorter mentally. And then stress and that cognitive load that we carry is really something that is measured, must be measured, and it actually feeds into quality of life for people, particularly in urban centers. And then predictability often beats efficiency as we perceive it any given day of the week. So let's start with something we've all experienced. You check your GPS, it gives you the fastest route, and you don't take it. Well, why is that? It's because we aren't actually wired to optimize for speed. We're wired to actually optimize for certainty. And I can tell you from personal practice that if my GPS says go this way, I will typically take straight line just because it's my perception that it may be faster. I might perceive that there's fewer stoplights. I might perceive that there are certain bottlenecks. And if I just go A and B to C, that's my way I go in my car. But because we're actually wired to optimize for speed, not for speed, but we actually optimize for efficiency. For certainty. Now, if you know a route and you know traffic patterns, the weird left turn where things usually slow down, that feels faster even if it's not. Again, that's that predictable route. And there's also that idea I've talked about as that perceived time. A route with fewer stops or fewer turns will feel shorter even if it technically takes longer. And that's actually going back to that idea of kind of that intellectual load or that stressors that we experience as we go through our transportation day. Like being late or navigating an unfamiliar area, our brain is a default that we want it safe and we want it predictable. We don't want all these extra variables of uncertainty. And so right away, we see something important. Mobility isn't just math. It really is psychology. Now I want to talk about the convenience will always be infrastructure. And I love this because at SNAAP Transportation, we talk about our ecosystem doesn't require new road construction or disruption or traditional infrastructure. So let's walk through this. So first of all, door-to-door ease is actually better, or we choose it more often than we see system quality. And then second, it's all about the problems of the first mile and the last mile. Quickly, if you have a 15-mile commute one way every single day of the week, the first 10 miles is always about 12 minutes, 15 minutes. But that last 5 miles or the last mile is always where the stressors come, the delays come, and it is that uncertainty. And then third, people choose fewer steps rather than better systems. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that, but it's probably pretty obvious. And then friction actually accumulates over time. That is the personal stressors, the traffic, the combating bad drivers, the stoplights, the accidents, all of those things along the journey. So convenience is really a time plus effort plus simplicity. And that's a nice, easy, smooth way of thinking about it. So we can build absolutely the most advanced mobility transit systems in the world, but if it's not convenient, people aren't going to use it. And I could pick great systems. I'll pick really the Middle East and Dubai in particular. Extraordinary, probably the best transportation agency in the world, and yet they still face some of those gridlocks and those transition patterns and the things that we're talking here about. Wonderful infrastructure, but it doesn't always get people to take that. So if you think about it, if people are taking public transit, that means walking 10, 15, 20 minutes. In the Middle East, it could be 110, 120 degrees. Then waiting 8 more minutes, then transferring twice, then walking again. Versus just getting in your car, going straight there, and most people choose the car almost every single time. Now, it's not that the system is bad, it's just the experience of it is really a lot harder. And this is what what planners call for the first mile, last mile problem, but it really is about a human problem. People choose the option with the fewest steps, the least amount of friction, and the most control. And boy, we heard that from our visionary inventor, Cal Chamberlain. He said, if we spent all of these decades getting people into cars, now how do we get them out? It's got to be safe. It's got to be convenient. It's got to be relatable. And so all of those were from our visionary Cal Chamberlain 30 years ago. And that's how we've been building SNAAP Transportation's ecosystem. We're going to now kind of focus on the area of the role of friction in our transportation decisions. And this is, again, some of the talking points. Small inconveniences compound very quickly, and they happen to us daily. And that is that cumulative effect, not just on a given day, but actually over the week and over the discourse of our daily urban journey. And then second, waiting feels much longer than when we're moving. If you wait 5 minutes, it'll feel like 15. If you're driving, hey, it feels like I'm getting somewhere. And then the uncertainty increases when friction increases. It might increase by getting to a stoplight right when it turns red and then feeling like you're aging out at that stoplight. Or a particular exit is backed up more than usual. Friction discourages repeating that behavior. So if we are accustomed to fewer decisions, fewer variables, fewer things, it may still take us longer, but our perception is that we're going to continue to take an A to B to C route rather than winding through a journey where GPS may take us. Reducing friction increases our adoption. And again, to our SNAAP transportation ecosystem, our full design of the future of redesigning sustainable, scalable, and resilient urban mobility focuses on last mile, last 5 miles, and really transition points where you could be underground in a loop or a subway, or you could be at grade on a micromobility, a car, an autonomous vehicle, a ride share, or you could actually be at a vertiport with a new air taxi. But still, once you land, now you're in that transition stage. So when we talk about friction, it's the very small barrier in a trip, whether it's waiting, transferring, unclear signage, things that happen daily, changes, delays in system. Don't add inclement weather, whether you're in an urban center in the north and it's snow, or you're in the Middle East and you have catastrophic rains, or you're in south of Brazil and you have catastrophic storms and flooding and so forth. So an example of a 5-minute wait will feel, as I said, 10 to 15 minutes longer. Because you're not moving, movement feels productive. And waiting feels really like a waste of time. The uncertainty makes it even worse. So now you're waiting. Now you don't feel like you're making any progress. And the uncertainty when a digital sign lights up and says that your journey is now potentially delayed. So when cities think about improving mobility, it's not just about speed. It's about reducing friction, because even tiny improvements in experience will have a multiplier effect when it comes to changing behavior and adoption. So a critical point, just because you have a clean system, a lovely infrastructure, does not mean that will be fully utilized, because people still have that human choice and a perception or sometimes the reality that they're going to have to make multiple stops, multiple changes, multiple walking, multiple delays, and all of those of that friction to their daily journey. Why does our behavior often override planning? People rely on our habits, not constant decision making. I can assure everybody watching this video that the number of decisions we make on any given day is insurmountable, not sustainable. That's why we have to take our brain rest, why we have to turn off social media, why we have to unplug, as we would now say, go on a vacation where you can't get Wi-Fi. Our brain's capacity are not built for the amount of information coming in. I have often said is that my decision maker is closed for the day, sometimes closed for the week, because I've just made so many decisions and I don't want to keep making decisions that may be not as effective, not with enough data. And so again, decisions constantly is what we're trying to reduce in our life. Systems assume rational choices, and we are not rational people. That's I won't get much into that. Emotional comfort influences our route. And again, I've already elaborated the A to B and the C is a lot better than the winding snake road that I'm not sure about that one. And then our social norms and culture actually shape our mobility. What happens in Tampa, Florida versus what happens in Seattle is very, very, very different. What goes on in Miami and Dubai or Sao Paulo or Berlin are all different cultural backdrops to how people treat urban mobility. And then finally, change requires behavior design, not just the infrastructure. You can build it, and in other episodes we've talked about why the Middle East is building so rapidly, why they have the build and they will come mentality. They want to be first, they want to be best. But even with those designs and their absolutely extraordinary visionary plans, you still have to have that behavior change that comes behind it, and you will still have gaps in that. Again, where SNAAP Transportation in our personal rapid transit system feels like we're building inside and filling this middle level gap in the mobility infrastructure. So again, here's the uncomfortable truth about planners, is that people don't behave the way systems expect them, so we have to train them. Most transportation models assume rational decision making, and we know that that is not always the case. We rely on habits. We choose what feels comfortable, not always what may be more efficient. And then even social norms actually play a real critical role, as we've described, depending on if you're European, African, US-based, Middle East, even Far Asia, are all going to have different patterns and different histories and different infrastructures. And so now how do you not only build and even retrofit some of these urban centers to improve mobility, improve accessibility, but also improve quality of life through a more seamless journey? And then finally, the behavior overrides planning, not because people are wrong, it's because systems aren't designed with real human behavior in mind. That is really the design of building systems that are focused on moving cars and not moving people. So what mobility systems need to understand about human habits? So design for default behavior is not ideal behavior. What makes the best option the easiest option? Reduce decisions and complexity, and then build systems that reward consistency, align infrastructure with human psychology. So what does that all mean in the future of cities? So first of all, it means that we design mobility systems around how people actually behave, not on how we wish they would behave. And again, that's a little bit of that conflict or that tension between building it and they will come versus building it with a real understanding of how are people behaving and making their choices. The second is the most successful systems make the best choice the easiest choice. If you recall, years ago in the United States, we used to have what's called park and ride. A park and ride was where they have a bus station for local transit. You drive your car and park there, and everybody would get on the bus and take that, quote, downtown. And that was their journey to work, and they take the bus on the way back and then drive the last 5 miles to the home. Now, While park and rides in the bus rapid transit system still makes sense, there's another layer above that where you can have not only park and ride for buses, but you can also have park and ride for PRT, personal rapid transit. And again, the advantages of a PRT is that it's sustainable, it's scalable, it's flexible, and it's actually very easily implemented and doesn't take new road construction or disruption. It maintains the canopy of the city. Certainly SNAAP Transportation, battery power, solar charge, fully autonomous. And actually, when you get to your destination, you arrive peaceful, not the stresses. It's predictable, safe, and so forth. And then because habits are powerful, once people begin adopting that new behavior, whether it's driving or walking or taking transit, they're actually going to stick to it. So again, the responsibility of designers and public-private partnership is to come together not only for the future of city design, but actually how can we improve systems that are currently in place, whether they're smart cities, sustainable cities, commercial residential developments. Any of these things require building and planning mobility systems based on human behavior now, not what we wish they would do. And again, this is to really tighten up the way we talk across planning, the way we talk across public-private partnerships, and the way we actually plan for future cities and retrofit those urban centers that need a dramatic injection of mobility alternatives. My name is Andrew Cary. I'm co-founder, CEO of SNAAP Transportation. We thank you for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to sharing more about the future of cities, the future of mobility, and the future of redesigning sustainable, scalable, urban mobility systems. If you'd like to find out more, you can reach us at info@ridesnap, snap always with 2 A's.com. You can follow us across all social media platforms, and certainly you can reach out to us directly.